the next speaker. That is nothing. It means no other than the Samay Association Gupta. He is from Mumbai, practicing Borivali, and he is an excellent retina surgeon. And he is more interested in the research. He is going to speak to us on the psychological, you can say, impact of the COVID-19 on the healthcare workers. Samay Association, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Very good evening to everyone, and very happy to be part of this August gathering of speakers, and amazed to see the amount of work that so many of you have already done. So I'll just start sharing my screen. So I have been part of a couple of psychiatry teams who have evaluated some kind of data on psychological impact of COVID-19 on physicians, and I thought I'll bring some of my experiences as well as what literature has evolved and where we are today. So, so if you want to ask ourselves, do you think COVID-19 has caused mental health issues? And I think the answer is a no-brainer, right? So it has affected every individual on this planet, irrespective of what their profession is. But somehow I think healthcare professionals are probably affected by this more than others. So what I'll show you is some percentages as to how many of us might have been affected by this, and why that may be so, and lastly what we can do to mitigate these problems. So if you do a quick literature review, which I've done about 2 hours back, and if you see the search words, it's on COVID-19 psychology and physicians or doctors, you will get more than 1 million hits on PubMed. So that's a huge number. So imagine how much people have actually felt this and done work on this to bring it out in such large numbers. So physicians involved in COVID-19, I think it's important to classify them and that not everyone would have been affected in the same way. So physicians, those who are in the firing line or on the front lines, those are the ones who are actually providing intensive care to patients and actually intubating patients and giving them CPR and others. So they are basically intensivists, chest physicians, ICU nurses. And so intensivist is a more of an umbrella term. So there are many people under that. So anesthesiologists, people who are MD physicians and others. So they might have been affected slightly more. And I'll show you some numbers to actually, show you that really was the case. Then non-intensive care, there are so many others, again, like physicians, radiologists, cardiologists, pediatricians, endocrinologists, and of course, large nursing staff who are actually present but not actually giving ICU care to these patients. Then there are so many who are involved in indirect care because COVID might be causing some symptoms in other parts of the body, such as ENT, ophthalmology, psychiatry, of course, and nurses. And there are some who are not at all involved in care, and some of us might have also fallen into that. And and all of this also affects resident training. Every resident in every specialty might have been affected or actually is affected, like Dr. Rajesh Sinha has told us and Lahane sir has also told us. So there's something that I will not cover, but we'll quickly look at what is the scenario of these physicians in terms of their psychological health. So, the real issues which emerge when you actually look at literature and work with some teams like these are anxiety, sleep disturbances, depression, perceived stress, stigma, and others. And this is across the spectrum. So how did frontline workers do? When you ask them about these, 65% actually said that they are depressed. So that's, I think, a very large number. Every 2 in 3. So if you know an anesthesiologist or somebody who's involved in frontline care, there's a high likelihood that they are probably depressed, though they may not show it. And then 45% had severe anxiety and stress. That's again a very large number. And the main causes really were lack of PPE kits, fear of contracting the virus. They're worried about transmitting disease to their families, and younger physicians were more affected than the more experienced ones. So, this is essentially the overall scenario for frontline workers. And also, 54% said that they were burnt out. And these surveys were done about 3 months after the onset of COVID. I'm sure these numbers have dramatically increased by now. And then 96% or almost all of them said that they had sleep disorders. They were not able to sleep. Even if you give them shift duties, they're still not able to sleep. And so, this is really difficult to sort of get over, but the scenario is such for frontline workers. For non-intensive care workers who are not on the front line, again, these numbers are still high. So 50% have some amount of depression and anxiety, and 7.3% had severe anxiety, and some of these were also suicidal. So these numbers, if you see, are 65% for the intensive care workers who are depressed, and this is about 50%, so slightly lower, but still they are actually suffering. So 1 in 2 is actually having some of these symptoms. And again, the common causes were lack of PPE care, fear of contracting the virus. They're worried about transmitting to their family, and younger physicians and women were more affected. And why I'm bringing these reasons up here is because we'll have to deal with them and look at mitigating strategies to overcome these. Then a survey amongst physicians and general mood and quality of life amongst physicians showed that about 30% are continuously in a negative mood, 40% are in a low mood, but 10% are still in excellent mood, and 20% are still in good mood. So it's possible that people can somehow develop strategies to even subconsciously we might develop strategies to not to come out of depression. When people were asked about satisfaction at workplace and their work experiences, a lot of people actually said that they were not very satisfied in the way they were working. And a lot of them actually cited poor working conditions, but then they did not blame any authorities for these, because most people understood that the unprecedented nature of the situation. However, the fact is that there were poor working conditions for a lot of these physicians who were taking these surveys. And this was across the spectrum, so there were from trainee doctors, from radiologists, from neurosurgeons, from dermatologists, from spine surgeons, across the spectrum. And this is not just limited to India, but globally, almost all were, having these kind of issues. One paper that I came up from Singapore dealt with psychological impact of COVID-19 on healthcare workers in Singapore, and I found that these numbers were dramatically low. Only 15% had anxiety, 9% had depression, and 6% was stressed. So most of the physicians seem to be very happy doing their jobs in Singapore. And when you actually try and read the paper, you only get one answer, and that was training. And these people were given training as to how to deal with these even before it started. So that's probably something that policymakers should think about, is preparing the workforce for what is coming. This is the actual scenario in ophthalmologists. So this is a paper that's published in the Indian Journal of Ophthalmology about a year back on psychological impact of COVID-19 in ophthalmology in training and also practicing ophthalmologists. So more than 2,000 ophthalmologists responded to this survey, and the mean age was 42. So it's relatively younger ophthalmologists. 57% were men, and 53% felt that COVID-19 would impact their training, and 37% had difficulty in meeting their living expenses. So a third of us actually had problems even with living expenses. So that was something which was very surprising. But then the ground scenario was such. And the psychological impact this paper brought out was that 33% are depressed, and that 4.3% had severe anxiety and stress. So the overall depression compared to frontline workers is definitely lower, right? So it's only one in three who's having depression, while frontline workers it's 2 in 3. So that's almost double. And also the severity, anxiety and severe anxiety and stress levels are relatively lower in ophthalmologists. And though in this subgroup it was much higher in young ophthalmologists, that is under 40, women, and those not earning well at baseline. So it's more like trainees or people who have just started out maybe in their practice. But then these this was still relatively high. I think from a subspecialty perspective, 1 in 3 ophthalmologists being depressed is still quite high. So just giving you that perspective that most frontline workers were depressed, anxious, having sleep deprivation and other problems. Non-frontline workers, it's about 50%, by an ophthalmologist it's about 33%. And so if you want to really choose which basket you want to be in, I would definitely choose being an ophthalmologist any day. And I think sort of the nature of our work and the specialty meant that we were not really equipped to train people in the front line. And somehow ophthalmologists have dealt with this probably slightly better in terms of their anxiety and depression numbers. So how to deal with this? What are the mitigation strategies? So when you look at this paper from Singapore and some other strategies that the NHS and others have come up with, and the first thing they talk about is something called psychological first aid. And that was again a new concept for me, so I had to do a lot of digging. But it really simple is make a psychologist available for people to call anytime they it's like a hotline where there is a trained psychologist on the other side of the line. and then have doctors, friends, and family continuously speak to these these individuals about whatever they need. So call me anytime you want. So that was sort of a punchline that these studies said. Then self-care strategies such as rest, work breaks, sleep, shift work, fatigue management, health, lifestyle behavior. So these are all concepts on their own, and we could actually talk about these for hours together. But these are something that people can be made aware of. And managing emotion, I say moral injury, coping, guilt, grief, fear, anxiety, depression, preventing burnout and psychological trauma. So these are some of the things that we can use to mitigate strategies. And this is a paper which talked about public health sort of angle and how and ways to deal with this. And they said that what can be done is that 30% of the onus lies with policymakers, where they provide a safe working environment for people to work. Simple things like providing PPE kits and things like that can actually be dealt with by policymakers. 50% of the onus is on providing more assistance to physicians on the front line, and as well as those who are suffering from these mental health conditions. And then 20% is training to handle it. So just a minute. I think we need to break barriers. We need to hang in there. We can only things can only get better, and we need to find new ways. We need to innovate, think out of the box. And the 5 R's that Mahipal sir said also comes up when I was looking at this. So we need to resolve, have resilience, return with a bang, reimagine, and reform ourselves. There are a couple of books that people might want to read that will really help you. One is on Think Smart and Work Smart. That there are a lot of strategies which we have been actually discussing through this session, and also another book on 21 Lessons from the 21st Century, which can actually help us prepare for things to come. So I think the overall summary is that there is a problem of depression and anxiety, which is high. It's much higher. Frontline workers are suffering more. Non-frontline workers are suffering slightly lower. And ophthalmologists, about a third of us are still suffering. But then there are solutions and mitigation strategies which we can utilize to overcome this. Thank you very much.
Lovely talk, Sabyachi. Lovely talk. Very beautifully covered.
An incident of a doctor who committed suicide in Delhi with the stress of COVID.
Yeah.
Really bad situation.
It's a very bad situation. Sabyachi, I just wanted to ask you, have you found any correlation between the the psychological aspect, that is the anxiety, depression, and the stress, and the heart attacks?
So I don't think we have had too much of study on how these translate into physical disorders as of now, but these definitely have been studied pre-COVID, and it is all true that people who have more anxiety and depression, people who are suicidal also have more of these cardiologic abnormalities. So this was all, of course, known and well studied pre-COVID. I'm sure it's going to happen even now. Though we haven't really studied, we haven't studied it per se with under COVID, but I think there are many other important aspects to study. But I'm sure that is true. What you say is true. The trends are definitely there.
Definitely there.
More than that is the financial aspect. People are going to be very bad financially hit. Except those in government jobs, you'll find doctors in practice, industrialists, businessmen, they're all getting very badly hit. They're not sure whether they can revive their businesses. I walk every morning with a very rich businessman, and he is selling all his assets because he doesn't have money to pay his debts. Things are tough economically. That also causes stress.
I'm also a little shocked at the figures Sabyachi was telling, that 37% are finding it to even
basic livelihood, yes.
Penniless, finding it for the livelihood. The livelihood itself is a major problem for them, and I'm sure during the second wave it's going to be even worse.
Right.
It's very interesting. A colleague of mine's son got MS ophthalmology in D.Y. Patil in Bombay, but he never took the seat because he was scared that his son will be put on COVID duty. He would not make it. So he dropped the post-graduation for 2 years.
All the postgraduates are put on COVID duty. Whether you are in Bombay or in Chennai or Delhi, all the postgraduates are in COVID duty. They have to do it. My daughter was in COVID duty in D.Y. Patil in Pune. And she contracted COVID after 2 weeks of COVID duty. It's a part and parcel of the whole thing. I think we have to.
I mean, the parents get scared, you see.
We don't do it, then who else will do it? You tell me.
Dr. Lahane, one thing I'd like to request you is that we should create a national grid of doctors. You know, I was very touched reading in America, doctors were flying from Los Angeles to New York when New York was suffering in the first wave to do voluntary work. You know, they were getting free tickets. They used to take the night flight to New York, put in 2 weeks of duty, and help out their colleagues, and then fly back after 2 weeks of this quarantine back to Los Angeles. Now, that kind of a drive should be there in India. 80% of the doctors are outside the COVID duty. The ones who are in the ICU are getting battered because they have to keep doing the same thing again and again. There should be a national grid by which we can get doctors who are willing to do volunteer work. I even suggested that to Harsh Vardhan, that later on they started asking doctors who want to volunteer, that there would be doctors who, who are retired intensivists and others who could be used for this kind of a thing, who could bring down the pressure on the youngsters, who could be used for teleconsultation. So many things could be done in the villages, but we are not prepared. What is the National Rural Health Mission or whatever we call it? What are they doing in disaster management? These are things they should be looking at.
Yeah.
True. Yes, yes. You are, Chetty sir, you are very correct. But in national grid is very important. And in Mumbai, what we did, we asked the private practitioners from Mumbai that they should join hands with us. And near about 4,600 doctors from Mumbai who was a practitioners, physicians, they joined with us. But there, we restricted them before below age of the 45. All young doctors, they joined with us. And they worked for the 14 days. We paid them, but they worked for the 14 days. And that was I think, a very good thing that practitioners came in. Otherwise, so beds there that time, we were only 23,000 beds, and then we made 1 lakh bed in Mumbai. And for that, the doctors are required. That maybe you can say the allopathy, homeopathy, and all practitioners, they joined hands. Also the nurses, 11,000 nurses, they came. And I think we could manage Maharashtra. And it is
Right, sir.
we
Because
said is, I think we must have a national grid. We'll do it definitely.
Absolutely.
so one of the things very touching was an ophthalmologist of Odisha converted his hospital ward into a COVID ward and accepted patients for COVID free of cost, managed their oxygen levels and treated them with steroids, because in his district he said there was no facility to treat COVID, and only when they became serious did he shift them to the district hospital. So he treated about 180 COVID patients in an eye hospital and learned everything online, how to manage. Now that is the beauty of ophthalmology.
Brilliant, brilliant.